Boxing is dying. This title is a bit extreme, but I do think boxing is beginning to struggle, and there are many reasons why. Firstly, let's start with the organisations. In boxing, there are 5 major recognised belt organisations for each division. We have the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, the WBO, and the Ring Magazine, some holding more respect than others. Having this many organisations hand out belts is a massive issue, as there is a possibility that boxing may have 5 different world champions in one weight class, which makes absolutely no sense. And it gets worse. If the possibility of 5 champions wasn't bad enough, it turns out it's actually a possibility of 11 different champions. Let me explain how this works, as you're probably confused. In all 17 weight classes, there are the following belts: IBF Interim World Champion, IBF World Champion, IBO World Champion, WBA Gold World Champion, WBA Super World Champion, WBA World Champion, WBC Interim World Champion, WBC World Champion, WBO Global Champion, WBO Interim World Champion, and WBO World Champion. This all creates so much unnecessary confusion about who is actually the best champion. You may now think that if they all fight each other, then we will know who the best champion in that weight class is. But this nicely leads me on to my next issue. The best very rarely fight the best. In the last couple months, we have seen a bit of improvement in this. For example, Tank versus Garcia or Lomachenko versus Devin Haney. But normally the promoters of these fighters want to protect them and their money, so will normally choose the easier fight for their fighter. Now compare this to the UFC, where you get extremely competitive and close fights regularly, and this is all down to their system. I am by no means, however, calling the UFC monopoly system perfect, but it definitely works better than boxing. Another reason that I believe boxing is struggling is the over-obsession of these perfect records. A boxer career normally goes like this. Once they become pro, they fight tin cans until they get a certain number of wins that looks appealing to the eye of a casual viewer. And then they fight people who are closer to them level-wise, but they will still have the edge on. Once they're at this stage, whoever promotes them will try and get them into the running for one of the 800 possible titles, where they will finally face an opponent that is closer to them level-wise, or maybe even higher, which again is appealing to the eye of a casual viewer. This is not really the fighter's fault though. It's more the money-hungry manager or promoter who is milking the current system for money. If their fighter loses, then naturally they will lose a lot of the hype that they have spent years building. All these promoters want to keep the belts in their promotion, as a belt makes it a lot easier to promote a fight, and an easier fight to promote is always going to equal more money. Now moving on to something that a lot of boxing fans hate, the influencer boxing scene. In my opinion, the influencer boxing scene has actually been good for boxing. It's brought millions of eyes to the sport, which is what the industry was in need of, and the natural domino effect of this is a lot of money coming in. An argument people like to use against it is that it's a mockery of the sport, which is a pointless argument because boxing is already doing this itself with all the corruption and the rigging of fights, which could be a video in itself. If we go back to the boxing belt system and compare it to UFC belt system, we really start to see how bad the boxing one has become. In the UFC, there is only 1 belt per weight class, so whoever has it is normally regarded as the best in the division, which is easy for everyone to see and understand. However, there is an exception. When a current champion cannot fight due to injury or some other reason, they bring in the interim championship, which is there until the actual champion returns, then they fight to unite the titles and it goes back to normal. There is also a BMF title, which isn't really a serious one and is more used by Dana to promote some fight. Another issue in boxing is the amount of weight classes. Do we really need 17 weight classes? No. The gaps between these weight classes are so pointless as well. For example, there's a 1 to 2 kg increase for the first 10 weight classes, and then after that I'd say they begin to make a little bit more sense. All these weight classes just mean that once again, promoters can slap in some more belts and then bring them even more money. Is there a solution for this? I'm not sure anymore. It's an issue that is getting worse with time, and with so many different organisations and promotions, it seems like it would be almost impossible for them to unanimously agree on something. It's a shame that we can't just see promoters put boxing first for a change, instead of money. But we can't forget that from the start, the main driver and cause of this is money and corruption. So as long as the money is coming in, the big players in the sport will continue to do what they've always been doing.